Hi, so Dean Thomas, Managing Director of CFS Caerphilly Funeral Services. With me today is James Amos. James is one of the civil celebrants we've worked with on a regular basis for many years. Thanks for joining us today, James.
It's a pleasure.
Like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role as a civil celebrant.
Yeah, so my name's James. I'm a civil celebrant, and I've been a celebrant for around 4.5 years now, working across Caerphilly, Cardiff, and up the valleys.
Over the years, you've done many funerals with us, and I think it's fair to say that they're all very different. Can you tell us a bit about why, as a civil celebrant, that's different to, say, the more traditional, formal services that many people are still used to?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the reasons that people would choose to have a civil celebrant to lead a funeral ceremony is that really we're not constrained by any history or any set rules. The point is that as a civil celebrant, I'll work with a family to put together a funeral that's as it should be, to remember and to celebrate the life of the person who's died. And if they choose to have hymns and prayers as part of the ceremony, we can do that, or it can be completely secular and non-religious. And so it's about having that flexibility that's so important to families.
Yeah, and I think as well, as we've worked together over the years on so many services, is that as we've worked as a team, and we often have those conversations about this family's not sure whether there's religious beliefs or not. The person was religious, but the family wanted a humanist ceremony, and I'd say let's have a civil part. But are you finding that more and more families are opting for a little bit of religion or no religion at all?
So there's a lot of families that would like a hymn, maybe a hymn that's been sung at special occasions, weddings, or at previous funerals in the family. A lot of families like to include the Lord's Prayer or other religious elements like that. But then the main body of the ceremony is all about their loved one, and it's about remembering and celebrating their life in the best way.
Do you find that with a lot of what's in the media at the moment about having a direct cremation takes away all of the grief, allows people to have a life celebration? But what are your views from your experience as a civil celebrant with that?
Well, so alongside being a civil celebrant, I work as a therapist. And during COVID, of course, a lot of families were not able to meet and have a traditional funeral ceremony. And what we found from the therapy side was that the grief process was lasting a lot longer, because a funeral ceremony is such an important part of the grieving process. It means that although it can be really hard, it is almost that line in the sand. It's that saying goodbye, but remembering all those wonderful things about them. And so one of my worries as a civil celebrant, but also as a therapist, is that if people are skipping that step, having a direct cremation and not having any sort of celebration of life or any sort of memorial ceremony, then the grief process stalls almost. It stops. And so while there's nothing wrong in a direct cremation, having that ceremony, that celebration, is a really important part of the process.
Are you finding that where people are not having a cremation or burial service, that many people actually have a life celebration without the coffin of the person there?
So I've led a few. However, more often than not, people tend not to, because life gets in the way. Whereas with a funeral ceremony, when you're saying goodbye and drawing the line in the sand, then it's that event, it's that point that it leads to. Whereas if people leave it, then it tends to not happen.
Yeah.
Which is hard then. And so the deceased then doesn't have a proper send-off, doesn't have a proper goodbye.
I think I agree with that from a funeral director's point of view. The number of times that how many times have we arranged funerals because family are travelling from away, they want a particular day, particular time, and people will make the effort to come to a service, but not necessarily for just a life celebration.
Well, this is it, and we'll do it in a few months' time. We'll do it later. And then because of families, just things happen, and it just doesn't happen. And it's a real shame then that that the person who's died doesn't have that celebration. You don't get the opportunity then to come together, to remember all those special things about that person, which is the joy, if I can use that word, of a funeral ceremony, or a celebration of life ceremony, as they're often called now, because that's what we do. We celebrate the life of the person who's died, and it's such an important thing.
I think it's fair to say that of the services that we've worked together with, they've been a roller coaster of emotions. Yeah. We've had people who've said, like, it's been a sad enough occasion, let's celebrate their life. Yeah. We've had formal aspects. We've had, it's been, everyone's been different.
This is it. And I think, the ceremony's changing now. So because it is a true reflection of the person who's died, we don't have to sing hymns. We can sing other things. So I led a ceremony the other day where we sang Frank Sinatra song. Yeah. Which, as a whole congregation, which is challenging, because Frank has a particular turn of phrase when he's singing. But it was a real celebration, and I come back to that word again, of that person, because he was a big Frank Sinatra fan, and it was a wonderful thing to get everybody together singing. Yeah.
And with the visual tributes as well, that's another part that is becoming more important, isn't it? Where the photos are on the screens to a favourite piece of music. That's become a big thing lately.
This is it. Photos, videos. It's a wonderful thing. Again, it's sort of bringing a person's life together. And it brings back so many memories for the families, for the friends who are there. And again, it comes back to really showing that the person matters, and talking about their life and all the wonderful things that they've done.
Yeah. I think as well, I mean, we've recently had a service, haven't we, where we had someone who had a very religious background but wanted a life celebration for the day of the cremation. And then we had a religious with their minister. We had a religious burial of the ashes a few days later, and that we've had that as well, haven't we?
Well, this is it, and because it's about the person, and it's a real fusion of how they often. I mean, in that case, it was a request from the deceased. That's what they wanted, but from families as well. It's about bringing together all the elements of the person, whereas a very traditional religious service doesn't talk much about a person in the traditional sense. Although, of course, there are many wonderful ministers who do, but traditionally it's not all about the person. Whereas we have that option; we can do what's right for them and right for the family.
I think what was important as well on that particular service is that what's the deceased person had made it very clear what their wishes were, and with you, it was very much a life celebration, wasn't it? It was very uplifting. Then when I was with their minister, we had a very formal religious service at the graveside where the family had gospel readings, we had prayers. But that's what people want, so it doesn't have to be totally not religious. It doesn't. There was I think very little religion was mentioned in that service, wasn't it? But again, it's all things that would have been missed with a direct.
Well, this is it. I mean, we had some religious elements. We had the Lord's Prayer there. We sang some hymns as well. There are some families who maybe don't agree on the type of ceremony. One of the joys, as I mentioned, of being a civil celebrant is that we can incorporate those hymns and prayers. We can incorporate certain religious elements into it to make it a celebration or a ceremony for everybody who's there. It doesn't have to be completely secular. It doesn't have to be completely non-religious. It can have religious elements as well. And it means that then it's a proper reflection of the person.
I think one of the other things that people don't always understand is that you don't actually have to have the ceremony at a crematorium. You can have it at home, anywhere really, can't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've led ceremonies in rugby clubs, in hotels, outdoors as well. I've been on the top of a mountain before now, which is great when it's raining, the wonderful Welsh weather that we love.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be anywhere, and it's about making it right for that family, and this is what it's all about.
Yeah, I think as well, often my wife passes comment that we're doing as much now in arranging a funeral service as you may do in a wedding, because obviously you do a lot of weddings as well. Yeah, and it is becoming much more bespoke, like weddings, isn't it?
It is. Well, in the wedding side of celebrancy, you'll often hear the phrase "your day, your way." Yeah, because it's about making it as individual as the couple. And it's the same with funerals. As you mentioned about the visual tributes, music, readings, prayers, hymns. It's about what is right for the family and the best way to remember and to celebrate the person that they love. Yeah. And being able to do all that we can to make that happen for them.
Yeah, because I think with your experiences on the therapy side, the funeral service is a very important part in that grief process, isn't it?
It is.
And many people don't come together, don't see each other.
Well, how many times, this is it, how many times do you hear people say at a funeral ceremony or at a wedding, oh, we should do this more often, we should get together more, because the only time we see each other is a wedding, a funeral, or a baptism. Because it is that time when everybody comes together to, in the case of a funeral, to remember a person's life. And what a wonderful thing, what an important thing to be able to remember all those important parts of a person, all those things that you love about them, some of those things as well that maybe drove you up the wall. Because we're all humans, we're all perfectly imperfect, but it's about working with the family. So for me, I'll go and spend a long time with a family, talking through their memories of a person. They'll often have friends come round and we'll discuss together, often have a nice cup of tea and a biscuit. And we talk about the person. And, often we'll talk for an hour, 2 hours. My process is that I'll talk to them. I'll make lots of notes. I'll really try and get to the core of the person, find out about them, even in a really small way, just in that 2 hours, but to try and get to know them a little bit. And then I take away all the notes. We'll discuss the ceremony. I'll put it together. And then I send it to the family a few days before the ceremony to make sure that it's right, to make sure that everything's in there they want to be in there, nothing's in there that they don't want to be in there, that it's a real reflection of the person. On the other side of that, I'll work with Dean and his team to make sure all the other elements are together, so that we can work together, as you mentioned, as a team, to make sure the day goes smoothly and well and the family have nothing else to worry about, nothing else to think about.
I think often people think that from a funeral director's perspective, we go and sit with the family for an hour, we do some forms, we go away, and they get up on the day.
That's it, walk for 5 minutes in front of the house.
You go and see them. People don't realise how much we put in behind the scenes, and I think that's one of the things, because we want it to be a special day for everybody. Everything is unique, isn't it? And also, I find that having those conversations with families, and sometimes I feel as if it almost gets them away from their grief for even if it's only 5 minutes, and talking about the person. And then when we can say, oh, James will be with you, and we get everything together. And I think that's what I get job satisfaction from. I'm not sure if you're the same with...
Well, absolutely. I think for me, and in your position as well, we're in such a privileged position that we get to talk to families and friends about somebody that they love so much. And the number of times that I'll go along and see a family, and I know you'll be the same, and afterwards they'll say, I was dreading you coming today. I didn't want it to happen. But it's been so nice to be able to talk about the person, to be able to remember some of those wonderful things about them. And, it's our job to make it as... I say job, it's not a job, it's a vocation. It is, but it's our role, I suppose, to make sure that the process can be as easy and as smooth as possible, to really make the celebration of the person all that it should be. And that's why we work so closely together to make sure it happens.
And I think that one of the things that I found rewarding is also when we stand outside the chapel after the service, and we sort of stand back, and the people who make a point of coming up and saying, oh, thank you, that was perfect. You made it sound as if you knew them, or then that's exactly what they would have wanted. And I think that proves a lot, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's such a wonderful thing that we can be there at the hardest time in many people's lives. And such a privileged position to be able to talk about the people that they love, and to be able to deliver a ceremony that is often one of the hardest days of somebody's life, but also gives them so many memories that they can carry forwards and can take on. As I mentioned before, it's a really important part of that grieving process. To remember, to celebrate, to hold on to those memories. And it doesn't take away the sadness. It doesn't take away the grief, but it makes it easier to move forwards.
And I think one of the things that you do as well is, after the ceremony, you give the family a copy of your script. A lot of the families ask for copies of the visual tribute or a recording of the service, and I think that more and more people then use that after the ceremony to reflect on the
Well,
sex,
this is the
don't they?
thing, isn't it? And the number of times that I'll have requests from family who live away or who haven't been able to be there, who maybe have seen the webcast, so it can be broadcast around the world, but would like a copy of what's been said, and then use that for future generations to be able to talk about, to be able to tell some of those stories again of the person who was so special to them, of grandparents or great grandparents. These things get passed down, which is a wonderful thing, that it's then something tangible to hang on to.
And I think the other part as well we're finding is that with the order of service, isn't it? They used to be hymn sheets,
Yes,
but now they're becoming keepsake mementos where we have photographs, poems, letters. So even if there's no hymns, we're still having booklets with keepsakes, aren't we?
Well, this is the thing, and then talking about personalising, making it exactly as it should be for that person, with the pictures on there, the photos of special places, of memories, of family. So again, it's something to keep hold of, something that's so special to remember the person.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one thing that makes it rewarding, isn't it? It's that every service is different now. It's not as when I first started, are you Catholic, Church of Wales, which church, which crematorium, there was a set format. Now there's a lot more, but it is a life celebration, isn't it? And it's something that is unique and an important part of bringing the family together.
It is absolutely. There's no copy and paste. No, that's the important thing. That's not what we do. As I mentioned, I go and spend a long time with the family, as do you, and it's about, even in that small way, over the few hours, getting to know the person, so that then the day is all about them.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you, James.
It's wonderful to sit and have a chat with you.
Yeah, it's just not talking outside the crematorium.
Yes, it's a bit drier in here, I see.
It's right up there, though. Thank you for watching our video. We hope you found it useful. And as we said, any ideas for anything else you'd like us to chat about, feel free to contact us and we can schedule something for the future. Thank you.